That's it. There's this story of Pablo Casals where he was working on a Bach cello suite, and they would play Bach cello suite every day. And some of the students said, "Well, you're Pablo Casals. You're like the greatest cellist in the world. Why are you doing this?" And his response was, "I practice because I think I can get a little bit better every day." And that really is the mantra of process improvement, right? It's every day you can do a little bit better at whatever it is that you're doing.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy O'Rourke.
And I'm Elizabeth Swan.
And we are from GoLean6Sigma.com. You're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast, where we bring you fabulous apps, polls, news, books, and people, so you can build your problem-solving muscles.
I have a new mantra for the cafe. No coffee cup left behind.
Oh, really? What's got you so concerned with cups of coffee?
They look so sad. They're all lukewarm. They get abandoned. Maybe we need like little coffee koozies or like little knit warmers. What do you think?
I'm not sure I like that idea. Well, since I believe in no idea left behind, I'll have to think about it.
You do that, and I'll meet you in our quiet dining room.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Elizabeth, tell us what's on the menu. We always have a good lineup.
We do. This is a great lineup. Today we find out how long it takes greenbelts to complete a process improvement project. And we launch a new poll about being able not just to see, but acknowledge problems in an organization. In the news, we'll talk about an upcoming gathering that makes Washington state government different from every other state in the United States, in a good way. We'll answer a listener's question about how to work with people who think their ideas are the only good ideas. And for today's special, I got to interview Kelly Wheeler, the trombone-playing Lean Six Sigma black belt who's helping the Army hospitals be safer, better, and more accessible.
That sounds awesome. Remember to stay tuned for this month's coupon code in order to get a discount on Lean6Sigma.com online training.
Let's get to the poll.
So, what did the poll results tell us about Greenbelt projects?
Good question. We asked our listeners, how long does it take to complete a Greenbelt project? And the caveat was 80% of the time. We know there's variation. 11% came in at 12 months or more, so a very small amount there. 14% said 6 to 12 months, also a very small amount. Almost a third, 31% said 6 to 12 weeks. And then almost half, 44%, said Greenbelt projects take 3 to 6 months. And I'll just contrast that with last month's poll with the Black Belt project, which resulted in 33% taking 6 to 12 months and 28% taking 12 months or more. How's that sound to you, Tracy?
You know, I really like this because it validates what I think would be good lengths of time for projects for both Greenbelt and Black Belt. I just had an organization recently that I'm helping, and we're trying to revitalize their Lean Six Sigma program. And their Greenbelt projects were taking 18 months, and their Black Belt projects were taking even longer. So to me, it's hard to motivate people to keep going when you've got a project that's taking that long, which really should not be. So that's wonderful, because to me, this tells me that people are scoping their projects appropriately out there and that they're taking on what they think they can achieve in a reasonable amount of time, because we really want people to repeat that process improvement cycle as much as possible. And that means that they're looking at processes that are within their control and they have some influence over those, as well as hopefully participating in working in that process. So that made me feel good to see those results.
Yeah, what you're saying rings true to me too, that it's about scoping, because if you get projects that are that long, it's just dispiriting. And interesting comment, or something I remembered from the Toyota engagement equation, was you shouldn't have more than 5 root causes. Like, that's an indicator of you've scoped it too large. So I feel like that's a good turning point for people. If you do start to find yourself on this project a long time, look at how many root causes you're tracing. Knock it down to like 3, and that could help you scope.
Right. And do you mean you're trying to validate 5 root causes and then maybe implement solutions for those root causes once they're validated? Because, I've seen fish bones that have a lot of root causes, but we can't really go after all those.
No, the ones you've decided to chase and that you're going to try and go after. Yeah, the ones you're going to try and validate. So now we've got a new poll. This month's poll, we're going to dig into a cultural issue. So this question sort of is the heart of whether an organization is really capable of ongoing problem solving. And the question is, how are problems treated in your organization? And the options are A, saying, quote, "we have no problems," end quote, is seen as a problem. Or B, problems are seen as opportunities to improve. Or C, we fix problems, but we don't highlight that we have them. Or D, it's difficult for us to openly admit that we have problems. So I'm anxious to see the results here since it's fundamental to the kind of culture we should all aspire to. And I'm just going to tell a story, Tracy. It's about our own organization. This was running a simulation fast pitch at an organization up in Canada. And when we pulled out all the pencils to hand them out to participants, they were not sharpened. So I had 20, number 2 pencils that were unusable. So poor client ran around trying to find a pencil sharpener. So I just wanted to know what caused the problem. So I just wrote to who I knew had put the kits together, and he's a new employee, Darian. And I wrote, what was on your checklist? Because I had a suspicion of the root cause. I said, did it say put, 20 number 2 pencils in the box, or did it say put 20 sharpened pencils in the box? And he wrote me back, it just said pencils, but he was, just telling me how horrible he felt and that this had happened. And I said, no, that's our fault. We gave you the wrong instructions and we need to update our checklist. And he said, oh, that's a really nice way to spin it. I said, I'm not trying to spin it. That's how we work. We need to understand, what's the problem, and problems are an opportunity to fix stuff. So anyway, I thought that was a nice example of kind of what we're shooting for.
Yes, focusing on the process, the checklist, and not the person, which maybe he's not used to that, right? Most people are used to getting blamed for things that go wrong, and people typically don't focus on the process. So good job, Elizabeth.
Client thought it was funny too.
Well, I think this is a great question, because we can do tools training all day, but it doesn't matter if they're not allowed to use the tools in the culture. If the culture is blocking or it's a barrier to actually applying the tools, they're never going to get used. So does the method work? Does PDCA work? Yes. Does DMAIC work? Yes. But sometimes culturally, they're not allowed to use it. So I think this is fundamentally when people say, oh yeah, we can't admit our problems. Well, we got to fix that before we train people on tools.
Right. I'm Elizabeth Swan. You're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. We'd love your feedback. Please leave us a review on iTunes or leave it on our website. And don't forget to subscribe.
Up next, it's in the news.
Okay, Tracy, tell our listeners why Washington State is so very special.
Well, they are on the cutting edge of lean and applying lean in state government. And how do we know this? Because this will be their 7th annual Washington State Government Lean Transformation Conference. It's coming up November 6th and 7th this year, and it's at the Greater Tacoma Convention and Trade Center in Tacoma, Washington. And it's really exciting. I've had the pleasure and privilege of going every year. We've had upwards of 2,400 people attend this conference. So lots of people, mostly in government, all kinds of government. So city, municipalities, and state. And it's really exciting to see a lot of the presentations are from people in government that are applying lean process improvement, and it's sharing their stories. But there's also a nice segment of experts in lean presenting and training people on new and interesting tools that maybe they haven't learned. So there's a nice variation in the offerings for the presentations. Last year, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was there and they presented, and a couple of other different organizations. Nordstrom has attended in the past, Costco has attended in the past. So, and also different state agencies from other states. So LA County was there one year, San Antonio, and also Denver. So it's really exciting to see all of this activity within state government.
It's a really fun conference. And this year, Tracy and I are going to present a workshop on the flipped classroom. And I just want to point out that Washington State is the only government hosting a conference like this. That's what makes them so unique.
True. That is special. And it was funny because they were kind of, Daryl Damron was spearheading that about 7 years ago. And they were brainstorming about what they wanted to do to promote lean in government. They're like, it'd be really cool if we had a conference.
And there you go.
And then he walked up and stuck a Post-it on the calendar like, Lean Washington Conference. Let's put that out for next year, next October. And they made it happen.
Wow. I didn't know that.
It was pretty exciting.
That's a good story.
Also, a reminder that AME's Great Ways of Excellence Conference is coming up October 29th through November 1st at the Manchester Grand Hyatt in San Diego, my hometown. Those are AME always puts on a great conference. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't signed up for that one, you should come. And it's really exciting. I'm going to be there, and they've got lots of great speakers lined up.
Once again, go just to meet Tracy.
We can have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I'm Tracy O'Rourke. You're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. In a short while, we'll get to hear Elizabeth's interview with Kelly Wheeler, Senior Health System Specialist and Process Improvement Specialist at Army Regional Health Command Pacific. Next up, it's a question from one of our listeners. So Elizabeth, we like the idea of no idea left behind, but we've got a webinar listener who experienced some challenges with that, didn't we?
Yeah. Tracy, the question was, how would you go about dealing with people who think that all ideas are bad ideas unless they came up with them? Which is, you can just feel that person's pain. The pain behind that question's palpable. It came up during our webinar, How to Coach Problem Solvers to Use Their Soft Skills. And the phrase "no idea left behind" came up during our recent review of Tracy and Ernie Richardson's book, The Toyota Engagement Equation. And the idea is that you've got to listen and entertain people's ideas in order to come to consensus on process changes. People have to feel heard, and you have to think about all different methods before you get enough support to make that change. So one of the techniques that I use, and I recommended to this listener, was called LCS, which is short for Likes, Concerns, Suggestions. So the way you use this technique is when you're in a group, you set some ground rules for responding to ideas. So you hear an idea, and although in your head you're going, that's a stupid idea. I would never do that. You can't say that. You can't come out and say that. You have to think about, what do you like about it? Now that's work. You got to sit there, entertain it, and think, what about that idea is good? Right? And you might extract something, right? There's something you like about it. Now, once you say that, the person who put that idea out there is like, oh, well, they're listening to me. They're actually telling me what's good about my idea. So now you've encouraged them. They can actually contribute more. You didn't shut them down by saying, that's ridiculous, right? So now they're with you. But then you get to say your concerns, because you've got concerns. You do. We are critical thinkers, which means we want to criticize. So you got to give your concerns, but for every concern, you got to make a suggestion. So once you give a suggestion, now you're building on that idea. So it's a really cool method, and it's a good structure to set out with a group, just to get them in the mode of listening and then working to find what's good.
I really like that. I like it a lot. It's sort of like doing pluses and deltas, but with an added twist with those suggestions. And I would even encourage people this technique is wonderful. And if you can remember it and do it without writing anything down, I think it's great. But I tend to encourage people to actually make 3 columns while they're listening to ideas and write it out, because you really do need to hit all 3. You can't just hit one.
Yeah.
So if you have 3 columns in front of you while you're listening to people's ideas, you can write them down. And it's a great practice. I think that practice helps strengthen the technique. And I do that all the time with project charters. And when I review Greenbelt projects, I teach at UCSD, and I got to review 16 projects, 16 presentations on presentation day. I always have a plus delta because as I'm hearing, I just write and it's just a lot easier for me to give that feedback at the end. So I really like this idea. And I think if you can put it into practice, you're going to be better at giving feedback that people are willing to listen to.
Great. It's time to announce the coupon code.
So this code is for 20% off any of our Lean Six Sigma training and certification courses like white, yellow, green, and black belt and lean training.
If you've joined us at the Just in Time Cafe, just use coupon code 20TART. That's 20TART during checkout. Make sure to use it soon since the coupon code will expire on the 15th of November.
Coming up next is today's special. Elizabeth, give us a little preview of your interview with Kelly Wheeler.
We heard about Kelly in an Army publication, and her journey totally stood out to Tracy and I. She went from a master's in music, that's the trombone playing, to a master's in business administration, and then she got her master's in healthcare administration. So talking to her made me appreciate what a difference mentors and teachers make in our lives. She's had great mentors, and her parents were also there for her. And now she's become a great mentor to others. And that's obviously had a great impact on the Army hospital she works in. She was great to talk to. I would say do not miss this interview.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Hi, and welcome to today's special. My guest is Kelly Wheeler, Senior Health System Specialist and Process Improvement Specialist at Army Regional Health Command in the Pacific, which means she's based in Honolulu. So since she's in Hawaii, we already know she did something right. Welcome, Kelly.
Aloha and good morning, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. We read an article about Kelly that was published by the U.S. Army that truly piqued our interest because aside from her accomplishments, her background points to a fascinating journey. She's a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt who got her master's in music, playing the trombone. She joined the Army to pay off student loans and ended up in the U.S. Army Band. Next, she got her master's in business administration, which led her to switch gears and become a management analyst, which led her to work in the military medical system, which led to more masters, this time in healthcare administration. Her most recent work involves coaching process improvement team leads, and that's resulted in more than $10 million in financial benefit, improved healthcare quality, lowered cost, and increased medical access. And it's probably becoming quite obvious to our listeners why we reached out to you, Kelly. I'm glad you made time to meet me since we're very keen to talk about women in leadership as well.
Well, I'm excited about this because all of these topics keep me going.
All right. So first off, Kelly, can you describe your current role? Like, could you give the audience a sense of what you'd be doing on any given day?
Well, I wish every day, we talk about in Lean and Six Sigma, the concept of standard work, standardization and standard work. We'll certainly have a different type of standard work, but I certainly approach any given situation the same way. Most days I spend really on the phone. The Army and our organization, it's based in the Pacific, and the Army is a hierarchical organization. So I have a higher headquarters, the Army, U.S. Army Medical Command, and we are a subordinate organization to that. And then we have subordinate organizations that fall under our purview and our responsibility for this particular region, which include hospitals and facilities and Hawaii and Alaska and Japan and Korea and Washington State. So on a typical day, I'm having conversations with people that cross these time zones. And I may be, depending on the week, I may be actually teaching. So I actually do quite a bit of travel. That's with this job as well. Probably about 30% of the time, going into 35% of the time, I'm on the road to one of our organizations that we support. I'm working with their process improvement coordinators, working with teams, teaching classes, which is a big component of that. So the large majority of my time is spent either teaching and or coaching and mentoring those that have gone through one of the classes that I've had the privilege to teach, and they're working on specific projects within their organization, or I'm working with their process improvement coordinators at that facility to work through, hey, what are some of the management processes or accountability processes that we need to put in place to continue on the journey. So most days look about like that. It's a series of phone calls, some analysis, because I work at a regional headquarters level and teach a variety of people. I'm not just, hey, I'm working with clinicians. It's clinicians and nurses and the administrators in hospitals and facilities management. In some cases, our organization also supports public health and our dental facilities as well. So before any of these calls, I have to get a little bit educated on it. So I do quite a bit of literature review before I work with people as well, to ensure that I can speak intelligently on the topic that they have. So it's a great time for me to learn, a great time for me to then to share my, work with them and create that collaborative relationship and help them with what they need help with. So that's a typical day.
That's a lot. That's a good day.
It's a good day.
Yeah, it's a good day. And can you give one example of one project you might be coaching somebody on?
We have really, I think where we are and the military and the government. And again, I forgot my disclosure at the beginning. These are all the views of me, and it certainly does not represent the opinions and the state for the Department of the Army, the U.S. Army Medical Command, or my organization. These are all my personal views. Certainly, I'll give you an example of something that I'm doing right now that's actually not related to work per se, but on the side, I do a lot of volunteering. I think I was talking with Elizabeth before the call with my Rotary Club, and within the amazing thing about Lean, as you've mentioned in some of your other podcasts in Six Sigma, is that it's something that regardless of the organization or group of people that you're working with, it supersedes all of that. You can use it in any platform in any way. So I've been working with another healthcare organization here on the island of Oahu, just kind of beefing up their process improvement efforts. Because in many cases, process improvement, and this has been a real passion of mine, is you've got pockets of goodness in every organization that you're in, but you're really trying to get it to be a whole culture and it to be integrated into part of that culture. And that's really been what I strive to do each and every day, from working with individual projects to working with those organizations. So that what we're working on now with this particular organization is coaching and mentoring the process improvement experts within that organization so that we can see process improvement actually be followed through on. And that really gets into the mentorship and the coaching aspect of what happens when you're doing and involved in basically good structured problem solving using a set of tools and a set of methodologies and concepts within an organization. So it's really starting from top down and bottom up and everything in between. So that's one project that I'm working on right now, and it really is so that we can see follow through with the process improvement that they already have going on. And that's a challenge, I think, for all of us.
The follow through.
Yeah, the follow through.
I love the term you just used, pockets of goodness. What a lovely phrase to sort of create a poll for what's good about what's going on. So what do you consider the keys to your success as a mentor? It's clearly a huge part of your job now is coaching and mentoring. And I wondered what are the factors you think make the biggest difference?
Well, certainly, as I think about mentorship and my role, I take it very, very seriously. And as I started, unfortunately, as a master black belt, sometimes you learn the technical skills that go with Lean and Six Sigma, and there's certainly a slew of the technical skills, like how do you do regression analysis, or how do I do this hypothesis test, or how X, Y, and Z, these different options that we have, and not everyone always teaches you the soft skills. That's something that you learn over time. So as I started the job that I'm in, I really had to reflect upon those things that impacted me and made me successful, right? And that's really, again, it's kind of been a journey over time. And I can think at really critical points in my life where people touched me, and or people that, I'm a good Bible believing Christian, and certainly my environment where I was and how I was raised has made a tremendous impact on me. Certainly within biblical principles, it's always do your best and always give your best to that higher being, and strive for that ultimate. Strive to be like the only perfect person that was living on earth. So that certainly that always resonates in me. But it was also my parents. When I think of what they did for me, certainly when kids are growing up, you're like, it's just my parents and blah. But that relationship changes over time, certainly once you get past a certain age. And as I reflected on what my parents did for me, I was just like any other child, and you want to be lazy and want to go. I was a girly girl, so I'm like, I want to go play with my Barbies, and I want to go play with my cat, and be completely distracted. But my dad and my mom, they always pushed us to do a little bit more. And part of that was because they knew what we were capable of, right? So when you think about that, when I mentor other people, I have that back in the back of the mind. I had people in my life that knew that I could do more, and so they encouraged me to do more,
Mm.
and they nurtured that doing more. So when I came home with my first C on a test, that was like the end of the world. My dad said, "You will go on restriction and you will not go out of the house." So, right. He like, from that perspective, he always expected more. You will make A's. You live in southeastern North Carolina. We know we don't have good public school systems, so you need to be your very best. And so he always pushed me. And then my mom, on the other hand, she said, I was never given the opportunity to play piano. You will play piano and you will practice every day. So of course you think it's drudgery when you're going through it. But later on in life, that's creating discipline. That's creating the ability to think differently. When I got a little bit older, they said I could pick what instrument I could take lessons on. So that took me down the trombone route. And then, when I think of certainly, being able as a mentor, kind of having a relationship first, right? So for my parents, it was a strong relationship. And it continues. My father passed away 8 years ago, but many times now I think, how would my dad have responded to this situation? So he still mentors me even after he's gone from this world. And certainly my mother, she was a first accountant in an organization that she worked for. She continues to do good things wherever she is. So I give her a call and say, "Hey, Mom, what do you think about this particular thing? How do you think I should treat this situation?" And she always gives very good advice and encourages me. And I think those are part of the qualities of a good mentor. Certainly those are life mentors, and as you go throughout life, you have those that are there for the longer term, and then you have those that are there for the shorter term. So the other example that I'll give that I take with me is my first trombone instructor. His name was John Marcellus, and he's still around. He's a great trombonist. Whenever you look up John Marcellus, I always encourage people. He's a fabulous trombone player. But when as a musician, and this is kind of time that where I am now as healthcare analysis, healthcare improvement, a lot of people ask, "Hey, Kelly, how did you make this turn? How do these things relate with one another?" Certainly as a musician, I don't know if you know any musicians, but it's an everyday task, right? It's
Mm.
every day you have to approach your instrument and say, how can I do better today? That's it. There's this story of Pablo Casals where he was working on a Bach cello suite, and they would play Bach cello suite every day. And some of the students said, "Well, you're Pablo Casals. You're like the greatest cellist in the world. Why are you doing this?" And his response was, "I practice because I think I can get a little bit better every day." And that really is the mantra of process improvement, right? It's every day you can do a little bit better at whatever it is that you're doing. But as going through as a musician, my teacher, John Marcellus, I remember distinctly one specific lesson, and as a trombone player and your instructor as a kind of going through college and a music conservatory, you select that teacher not because of the school, not because of the things that it has to offer. It's really how do you connect with that particular professor, right? So you have to have a connection. And I think that's really critical to mentorship, is that you are able to truly connect with that person, and you're going to get, and both of you feel like you're going to get something out of this relationship. Certainly someone that teaches full time is not going to say, hey, I'm just here to hang out, I'm here to make a difference in people's lives. So I remember distinctly one lesson that we had together, two lessons. I'll give you two examples of this. The first one was, I was working on the excerpt for Bolero, big trombone excerpt, and it's really, really high. And I was struggling with it. I just could not get the feel. I was like chipping notes. I was working too hard. And he said, Kelly, you've just been approaching this the same way and getting the same results, right? The definition of insanity. And we need to come from a different perspective. So what he did, he had a whole, he wasn't very organized, but he had a whole slew of different records and recordings and music. So he pulled out this one and put it on his LP player, and it was Getting Sentimental Over You, Tommy Dorsey. I don't know if you know that tune. Are you familiar with that at all, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Right, jazz. And I'm thinking, why is he pulling out this jazz CD, jazz LP, when I'm talking Bolero? And he said, just play Bolero like Getting Sentimental Over You. You know, make it jazzy, make it glossy, right? So what he did for me in that particular lesson was say, you can't always approach a problem the same way. You have to come at it from different angles and a different perspective, and give it a fresh look and a fresh perspective, and try something a little bit different. And you know what? The next time I play Bolero, and every time after that, just all I had to think was Getting Sentimental Over You, and it was good.
Wow.
So certainly coming at problems from different angles and exposing yourself to something different. The other thing that he taught me along the way was, Kelly, if you're really not like really happy and passionate about doing something, and it's not making your hair, blow back in the wind, you probably need to look for something else, because you don't want to live life being unhappy with that particular thing. So certainly that sticks with me throughout the journey of my life, and continuing on. I'm 40, so I've got a number of years to go. So it sticks with me. So as long as my hair is flying back, and what the amazing and beautiful thing about working in process improvement and healthcare is that every day is a little bit different. There's always going to be problems to solve. There's always going to be situations that are unknown, and you need to be able to go and get after them. So it's a little bit new every day. And it keeps, at least right now, it's keeping my hair flying back. So so that's another, right? That was a formal mentor that I had, that I selected, that left marks on me. So when I work with other people, it's not only, I approach even the folks that I teach and I that are going through and working on process improvement. One of the first things I ask them is, first, are you comfortable with me? If we're not making a relationship and you don't feel like you can be honest with me about whatever is going on, then I probably need to match you up with someone else. That's really important, that you're able to establish that relationship. The next thing is, does this project make your heart sing? If it doesn't, you're not going to put your heart into it. And with any process improvement that you're involved in, if you're not sold on it and you're really not passionate about it, you're not going to give your all. And you really absolutely do have to be, in many cases, emotionally invested to really see it all the way through. So I certainly encourage people to be working on something that really makes their heart sing and that they're passionate about, because that's going to be part of the coalition process. If you don't believe in it, it is not going to happen. So those are some things I took away from that particular mentor in my life. And then finally, I'll kind of end with the mentor that was left. I think in the article that you all read, his name was is he's still alive. He's retired from the military now. Rolando Castro. He would not be mad at me if I used his name. But he just a wonderful boss. And that was one of I didn't select him as a mentor, but he took the opportunity and saw the drive that I had and saw the capability that I had. Certainly he was the first manager that I had within healthcare, and he knew I was fresh. He knew I didn't know a lot about healthcare. I was hired on as basically his secretary, but he said, you know what, you're going to be more than a secretary. So he was able to give me a few more responsibilities, and at least from a pay perspective, he's like, I want to be able to at least keep you for a year. And so he really worked with me. So that relationship wasn't, I'm going to tell you what to do. This was a relationship of, we're going to get you to the next level that you need to be in. So even though I was in a job, kind of new in healthcare, he recognized potential. And that's always important in a mentor, is that you recognize a person's potential. And then you use ways to teach them, right? Not just tell them exactly what to do, but look for those questions, look for those opportunities to help develop them. So he gave a number of opportunities to me. I think the first was, he said, Kelly, you're going to read everything that comes across the desk. And at the end of the day, you're going to give me the 30-second bottom line up front and tell me why I should sign it and why I shouldn't sign it. And that was pretty incredible. He was the administrator for the organization. So there are all sorts of things going across his desk. So I learned everything from policy to human resources to how you deal with electronic health records. I just anything under the sun, because it was coming across his desk. And at the end of the day, I'd have to give that 30-second bottom line up front. Also had to get things through, of course, that were free for him. So we had certain standards and goals for that. And then he would look for all those other opportunities for me to say, you know what, you're going to learn a lot from this particular project. Let me give you some time to do that. So as a mentor, he also, and a manager, that had a nice perspective to it, because he was able to carve out time for me to be able to say, hey, you need to work on this specific project or this specific thing. And he would always back me up in doing that. So that's an advantage of having a manager that's a mentor. Not everybody gets to have that opportunity. So I certainly feel very blessed to have had a manager that was also a strong mentor. And certainly as he went across, he said, Kelly, you're great. You really need to stay. You need to be looking towards the next level. And that's going to be going ahead and getting your master's in healthcare administration. And through that, it's just opened up so many opportunities that I never thought would even remotely be available to me. So here I sit, and one of those being meeting my husband, who is also a mentor. So always think of your spouse or your partner, whomever that might be, as a mentor, because they're going to be the most honest to you.
Right. So much in there. There's so many great nuggets. I just want to reflect for a moment that, your parents, as you said, they knew you could do better. Your first music teacher sort of put that question out, how can I do better today? Which means there's practice involved. And Rolando Castro said, you're going to be more than a secretary, which is basically saying you can do better. So I feel like there's this constant message there, which is really lovely. And I also want to reflect on, you said, oh, I'm a girly girl. And I thought, you've done some tough things. I wanted to play the trombone actually too. And I got shot down. They said, no, girls don't do that. They play the flute. And your mom said, I didn't get a chance. I want you to have a chance. So you've become a woman in leadership, and you've done a lot of work to get where you are. Hawaii. I'm just kidding. But you've done amazing things, and you've clearly, by your own description, took from your parents, your music teacher, Rolando Castro and other mentors, all these wonderful lessons that you give to others. And Another favorite quote I'm going to take from you today is my hair is flying back. And that is a beautiful image for saying, I'm happy what I'm doing. And you're kind of asking the same thing of the people you're coaching. Does this project make your heart sing? Because those are the reasons to stay in what you're doing, or, now it might be time to move on and try something elsewhere. So yeah, you've given me shift gears, given me, and I know the listeners, some really lovely nuggets here to hold on to and just visualize, because they're nice visuals. So Kelly, tell me, how could someone find you or communicate with you if they wanted to just even say thanks for those nuggets, Kelly, or ask you a question?
So certainly, I try, since I live in Honolulu, I don't want calls in the middle of the morning from different sides of the world. The best way to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. I'm usually very open there, and will respond. I usually try to respond to people within 24 hours. My mom always said, "I'll get to you someday." That's mom. But I try to get back to people within 24 hours. And certainly I really do appreciate this opportunity to share the great things that other people have shared with me. And that's really part of mentorship, right?
That's lovely. You've been listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. My guest today has been Kelly Wheeler, Process Improvement Specialist at Army Regional Health Command Pacific. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with our listeners, Kelly.
Thank you. And mahalo.
Mahalo.
Don't forget to sign up for our upcoming webinar, 2 Easy Ways to Quantify Project Savings, and check out some words of wisdom from our latest Wonder Woman of Quality, Leslie Henkler.
And join us in 2 weeks to hear Tracy's interview with Jeff Costanzer and Carlos Vallejo from Costco Wholesale Industries.
We hope you kept your coffee warm while you joined us here today at the Just in Time Cafe.
Come back in 2 weeks for more coffee.